Hello, and welcome to Lease Queries Accountant's Angle, an audio blog series where our experts answer your most burning questions regarding upcoming accounting topics and changes. My name is Emily Fish. I'm a product accounting manager here at Lease Query and your host for today's audio blog. Today, I'm joined by Rachel Reed, Accounting Solutions Manager here at Lease Query, to discuss the interest rates available under ASC 842. Thanks for joining us today, Rachel. Let's get started. So there are several different terms used when discussing the borrowing rates under ASC 842. Can you explain what they are and how they're different, if at all?
Yeah, absolutely. We get asked about borrowing rates here all the time at Lease Query. In almost every product demo and conversation we have. There are different terms that get thrown around for the borrowing rate, like discount rate, interest rate. And within that, there are multiple different rates within the standard that you can use. So we're going to talk about those today. These discount rates are used to calculate the lease liability for the lessee, which is the present value of the lease payment. So you need that rate to come up with the present value. So the first rate we want to discuss is the implicit rate. You might hear this called the rate implicit in the lease, or the implicit interest rate, or the rate inherent in the lease. This is all kind of meaning the same thing, the same rate, which is essentially the lessor's profit margin on the lease. This rate is often not available to the lessees because it's driven by lessor inputs. Some of these include like the fair value of the asset, the lessor's deferred initial direct cost, things that isn't going to be readily available in the contract for the lessee. Because it's basically the lessor's profit margin, they're also not going to just provide it to you, right? So not always going to be available, but that, if it is available, should be the rate that you use as a lessee first. That's not available, you can move into one of the second rates or third rates we're going to talk about today, which is the incremental borrowing rate or a risk-free rate. Now, the incremental borrowing rate is the rate that the lessee would have to pay to borrow over a similar term, an amount equal to the lease payments, also on a collateralized basis. This rate is going to be unique to every single company. It's not something that you can just read or calculate within the contract terms. So you may have to go to your treasury department or your financial institution, just kind of ask them, hey, what would we be charged to borrow this much money over this much time? So because this is going to be more available than the implicit rate, it is going to be more commonly used as a borrowing rate for topic 842. You do also have this option, which is the third one we talk about, the risk-free rate. If you are a non-public entity, so if you are a private company, within that standard 842, you are permitted to use what's called a risk-free rate, or maybe a risk-free discount rate, for a policy election for all of your leases. Now, this rate is basically the rate of return on an investment with zero risk. And you can find this rate by going to the treasury.gov website. And it's going to just be something you can just type in, find that rate based on current market terms.
And that was a great call out, Rachel, where you discussed the incremental borrowing rate under 842 being on a collateralized basis, because that is a change from 840 when it was previously not required to be on a collateralized basis. So thanks for calling that out. A follow-up question then, can you give us an overview of the differences between using the implicit rate, the incremental borrowing rate, and the risk-free rate?
Yeah, absolutely here. So the implicit rate, again, is not going to be readily available most of the time because it requires lessor inputs. If you can use that rate, great. You can apply that to your leases, but the incremental borrowing rate is going to be more available. It is going to require you to do some research, right? So it's not going to be as easy as just plugging in some numbers and calculating it. Whereas the implicit rate, if you do know all of those lessor inputs, you can actually calculate it using a formula to get that in rate. The again, incremental borrowing rate, you got to go to your financial institution, come up with that number. That risk-free rate, though, we talked about. This one, the biggest difference, right, is it's going to be the most readily available. Again, for private companies only can use this. A big difference, though, is this rate is going to be significantly lower than the other rates because it's a risk-free rate. And that is ultimately going to result in a higher liability, right? Due to the nature of present value calculations, you've got a lower rate, you're going to have a higher liability. And because that rate is required to be used as an election, a policy election for all of your leases, you might not think it's going to make a big difference for one lease or two leases here and there, but for your entire portfolio, it could make a significant difference in your liability. So just something to consider.
Great things to think about. Thanks, Rachel. Great information as always. So thanks so much for joining us, Rachel, and thanks to our listeners for joining today's Accountant's Angle. Remember, you can submit your questions for upcoming audio blogs, and our experts will share their insights. Don't forget to tune in 2 weeks for our next topic.